I chose the controversial topic of social media. I wanted to start my presentation by saying that not all of social media is bad. If it was, it wouldn't be as widely used and accepted as it is today. Social media allows us to stay in contact with friends and family across the world. It can give us a voice for what we believe in and to fight for what we believe in and create movements for what we think is right. More than the benefits it has, though, are the ways it impacts our interactions with one another, the relationships we share, and the problems it can create within ourselves. 1/4 of adolescents themselves think social media has a mostly negative influence on people their age. The reasons that are listed for having this opinion are things like rumor spreading, lack of in-person contact, unrealistic views of others' lives, peer pressure, and mental health issues. Cyberbullying is the deliberate use of electronic communication to bully a person, typically by sending messages of an intimidating or threatening nature. Cyberbullying can be just as problematic as face-to-face bullying, as better covered in the following TED Talk given by a young girl named Trisha.
This hidden scourge of cyberbullying is something that no one likes to talk about. They don't even like to admit that it exists. And yet, millions and millions of people around the world suffer from it every single day. They go through low self esteem issues, depression, are more likely to drop out of school, are more likely to get into alcoholism, are more likely to go into drugs, and in rare cases, even commit suicide. It's awful, and it needs to stop. In the fall of 2013, I came home one day from school to read a story about a young girl who was only 11 years old. She had jumped off of her town's water tower to her death, all because she had been repeatedly cyberbullied by her classmates. I was shocked, and I was angry. How could a girl younger than myself be pushed to take her own life? It was unacceptable. And that's where my journey started, to come up with a long-term, effective solution to stop cyberbullying at the source before the damage was done. Cyberbullying is a huge, huge problem. 52% of adolescents in the United States alone have been cyberbullied, and 38% of them experience suicidal tendencies.
Although social networks enable an individual to interact with a large number of people, these interactions are shallow and don't compare to everyday face-to-face communication. Nevertheless, real human connections are being replaced by these virtual relationships. The definition of ghosting is ending a personal relationship with someone by suddenly and without explanation withdrawing from all communication. Social media makes it easy for things like this to occur. We are treating people more like they're objects than they are people. The reality is that we need to spend more time being present with the people in our lives than we do with our faces buried in our phones. I know this is easier said than done. Being present and patient was hard to do years ago, and it's even harder now. This is all more true when applied to families. Being present is what people need to build and maintain strong relationships, especially with their children. Parents need to spend more time paying attention to their kids than scrolling through their phones. Social media has made us impatient, as we are constantly expecting things to grab our attention immediately, which makes this task all the more hard to complete. Quantitative studies have suggested that the internet and time spent on social networking sites weakens adolescents' existing relationships with families due to the lack of time spent with their family in the evenings and on weekends. Teens are spending more time on these social media sites rather than engaging in face-to-face time with their family. Although peer-to-peer socialization is mostly done over various social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, or Snapchat, family socialization is not, and teens today are finding it harder to pull away from their social media accounts to interact face-to-face with their family members instead. Notifications and checking our phones interrupt real-life conversations and interactions. By being constantly presented by highly idealized views of our peers, social media elicits feelings of envy and inadequacy in ourselves by instilling the often false belief that other people are living more successful or more fulfilling lives. This presents unrealistic standards. It shows teens a world that has been filtered in favor of a particular person or group. Social media as a whole gives massive followings to people who are popular rather than people who are professional, and we're impressed by these people's social media numbers, like likes or follows. If you hear that someone has dropped out of college or maybe even high school to film their daily activities, you aren't particularly intrigued by them. But then if you find out that the same person has millions of followers on multiple social media platforms, you are immediately more interested in that person. Self-esteem, by definition, is the degree to which one prizes, values, approves, or likes oneself. Scrolling through social media makes us feel left out when we see things like groups of people having a good time. When you aren't having the same experiences you are seeing others have, it makes us feel uncool, discontent, invaluable, and other adjectives like that. This lowers an individual's self-esteem. People with lower self-esteem are more active online in terms of having more self-promotional content on their social media profiles. This is most likely because we feel the need to be seen by massive amounts of people, and we crave the gratification of others. Arguably, most importantly, social media is having an effect on teens' emotional and psychological developments. More time on social media was found to be associated with more anxiety, depression, and loneliness. More depressed people check social media more often. Increased time spent online is related to a decline in communication with family members, as well as the reduction of the user's social circle, which may further lead to increased feelings of depression and loneliness. It could be argued that those people are already depressed and looking to social media as an outlet, but in all reality, the numbers don't lie. Social media is causing depression for a lot of people, and that, in turn, affects the way that they interact with others in the physical world, potentially bringing down others around them. Naturally, when a person becomes depressed, they gravitate towards unhealthy and somewhat self-destructive behaviors. Eating disorders are another form of mental illness that can be rooted from social media. The media gives distorted images of how our bodies should look. This leads to an increase in teens engaging in self-harming practices that often lead to things like eating disorders. These eating disorders are affecting all genders, all races, and people of all socioeconomic backgrounds. As a result, the mental illness majorly affects loved ones as well as the victims themselves. In opposition to this argument is that Facebook and Instagram now have methods to report self-harming and suicidal content to prevent things like this from going too far. But in reality, this feature just proves how serious and widespread this problem really is. So if all of these bad things can be acknowledged as happening on an everyday basis and can be proven to be true, why do we continue to use and abuse social media? Well, a neurochemical called dopamine, which is responsible for how happy we feel, is released in our brains with every like or message notification sent to our phones. This keeps us addicted. With all the studies proving the toxicity of social media, particularly in the areas of cyberbullying, lack of in-person contact, unrealistic views of others' lives, peer pressure, and mental health issues, we need to start realizing the actual cost of social media. Thank you.